Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for session 1 of our Connected Caregivers series called Learning with Tech. My name is Tracy Lenahan, and I am the Digital Learning Specialist for the East Valley School District. And I've been an educator for over 20 years now. And while I come here today with that background, it's my current experience as the parent of a 12-year-old middle schooler that really motivates me to be here today. Because like many of you, my son is currently learning and trying to navigate his tween social life all from a distance. So I think it's important to find ways to support each other as parents and caregivers as we all try to navigate this changing environment that we're in right now. And I am joined today by one of my teaching and learning colleagues, Carrie Roderick. Carrie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. As she said, I'm Carrie Roderick. I'm the Assistant Director of Assessment and Technology. I've also been doing this for over 20 years, but I also am a parent of 4 children ranging from ages 27 to 13. And so I do have the middle school teenager at home doing full distance learning and navigating this digital world as well. So it's been interesting to see the changes in technology, not only from an educator standpoint, but also from my now 27-year-old now to my 13-year-old and their experiences online. So I'm so glad that you are joining us this evening to navigate this world with us.
Thanks, Carrie. So before we begin, I want to let you know that we're going to record this session so that we can provide it as a resource for others and for you if you want to go back and see it as well. You'll notice that there's a Q&A button that you can use to type in any questions throughout the presentation. However, we're going to try to save answering most of them until the end. This presentation is approximately 30 minutes long. And if you're interested in staying on with us afterward, we'll spend, up to 15 minutes to answer your questions. Otherwise, you will find a Q&A document from this session located on our district webpage under the Families tab. So the overall purpose of this series is to support caregivers in promoting a safe and positive digital life for our kids. We want all of our kids to learn to think critically and start to create those positive habits of mind. So most of the resources that we're going to reference today are from Common Sense. Common Sense has been providing resources for families and educators and advocates since 2003 to harness the power of media and technology and help our kids thrive in a digital world. At the end of this presentation, we'll talk to you about the resources available on the Common Sense website so that you can use it to support your kids. So first, I think it's important to acknowledge that we're all trying to navigate this new world of devices and tech, and it is not easy. And our kids are using a lot of media right now. In fact, our tweens spend about 6 hours a day, and teens spend about 9 hours a day on their screens. And that was statistics before the pandemic. So you can imagine what it is now. And as caregivers, we worry about our kids' well-being, and we kind of feel sometimes a little bit of guilt or anxiety about how to navigate all of it as the adults in their lives. So while acknowledging that we all have these legitimate fears and concerns, it's also equally important to acknowledge that media and technology can be a really positive experience and offer opportunities that otherwise are not possible without the technology. So with that said, today we will try to answer this question. How do we set expectations for managing screen time, motivating kids for online learning, limit multitasking during work time, and find a media balance within our family? That's a tall order. And we know that you want tips and tools, and we're going to get to some of those, but I just want to, let you know that it's important to know that there is no magic bullet for this. There are changes in technology and media that move so fast that we don't have simple solutions to this. So today we're going to give you some practical tips. However, we really want you to leave today with some of the overall strategies and kind of the framework of how to support our kids going through all this technology and all these pressures put on them with how to navigate it. Okay, so we're going to do a quick check here. It's all about balance and your child's media use. And so we're going to have you ask yourselves just a few questions. And let me see if I can get this going here. And so what I want you to do is just think about yes or no, this is my child is doing this, or my child needs some help with this. And so the things that you answer yes to, you're probably doing a pretty good balance of this. If not, then this list might help you figure out what might need to take a little bit more of your attention. So is your child physically healthy and sleeping enough? So just something to think about there. Are they connecting socially with family and friends in any form? That could be digitally or in person or just on a phone. Are they engaged with and achieving in school? Are they pursuing interests and hobbies, again, in any form? Because of the situation that we're in right now, a lot of things can't be done in person. So as long as they still have some interest in things and hobbies, that's a good sign. And are they having fun and learning in their use of digital media? And since there's no research that really nails down the exact right amount of time of kids, of what they should be spending on screens, we can use these questions to take a look at our child holistically. And basically, if they're using screens as one part of their lives, and they're but getting exercise and they're eating and they're being social, then things are probably in pretty good shape. So, it's about around the age of 8 that kids start to want more independence and develop their own relationship to technology and media. And when they're young, we choose what they watch and engage with. But as they get older, instead of just watching and playing what we choose for them, they have more opinions about what media they want to use. So lots of kids are playing things like Minecraft and Roblox and Rocket League. And some of these are really creative. Some involve gaming. And sometimes these involve connection with other kids. And I think this is especially relevant now during a pandemic where kids aren't able to connect with each other in those traditional ways. So if your kid is anything like mine, they are on their screens a whole lot more these days. And it worries me, and I want to make sure that there's still a good balance. So just know that you're not alone with this. So let's start out with some strategies to set you up for success. And these are some overall guiding principles that can take some of the worry and headache out of guiding kids around technology for media use. So what are some best practices for digital media and devices? So first, I would recommend using and watching with your child whenever you can. That way you can discuss and explain things as they happen and connect it to real life. And again, it's great bonding time as well. Spending time looking at things that they want to look at and having those conversations. Knowing your own rules. So you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page when it comes to these rules. For instance, can they take the iPad without asking? Are there specific times or places to use it? What are the consequences if they're not meeting those expectations? And everybody has to kind of have that consistency and understand the rules. Setting expectations and rehearsing. So if you have clear expectations, you can rehearse these expectations with little kids. So you can play one of the games like Token Nature until you hear the timer go off. When you hear the sound, flip the cover shut. And then it's like, okay, let's practice. And so you can do that with your younger kids, practicing that and rehearsing that so that that becomes, just something that they remember to do all the time. And with older kids, you have to kind of find or negotiate stopping points that feel logical and a little less arbitrary than those time limits. I know when my son is playing games, it's like, okay, I want you off right now. And it's like, well, I'm in the middle of something. And so you have to kind of do that negotiation. but you also have to set those limits. And then connecting media to real life. So if you're watching television with your kids, or they're seeing ads popping up on their browser, you can talk about these ads and commercials and what the purpose is of them. And you can also do things like play a game and guess what is being sold. Because sometimes you watch a commercial and it's entertaining and you're not quite sure what it is they're trying to sell you. And then you finally go, oh, so it's kind of a fun game that you can play with kids too. Encourage creativity as well as consumption. So we find that a lot of kids are, just consuming, just watching. And so it's really good to get them doing things that are more creative, like coding is a great thing. And just creating some of these media experiences that are more empowering for our kids. Because that's actually like the draw of some games like Minecraft, where they get to problem solve and build worlds out of their imagination. So that's sort of the draw. So we really want to kind of tap into that. And then talk about digital citizenship. I don't think it's ever too early to talk about digital citizenship and how to behave online and what to do if something upsetting happens. And Common Sense has some really great resources for this. If you don't feel as a parent or guardian that you have the tools necessary, we're going to share some of those with you for supporting that for you. And then finally, just be a really good role model. It's hard. Our kids are looking at us all the time. And we need to practice what we preach and put devices down when your child wants your attention, and make sure that you're following the house rules as well. So I think it's just really important that we're modeling some of this good behavior. It's not always easy to do, but I think if we give it a good effort, it makes a big impact on the kids. So I just mentioned like setting limits around time and places where your kids and you can and can't use devices, like either in the car or the bedroom or the dinner table. And Common Sense had this idea to make dinner device free. I've got this super short little video I'm going to show you right here, and then I'm going to talk to you about it right afterwards.
9 hours. That's how much time the average American spends on devices every day. Sometimes it feels like screens are taking over our lives. But there's one simple step we can take to help change that. Try a device-free dinner. By turning everything off before family meals, guess what happens? Amazing conversations, lots of laughter, and healthier kids. The American Academy of Pediatrics agrees. So enjoy a device-free dinner tonight. 9 hours. That's how much time the average American spends on devices every.
All right, we already know that. Thank you very much. So, this is a great idea. And I think if we all had the opportunity to sit down and have dinner together, this would be a great way to practice this. But, not all of us have that opportunity to do that. We've got work, we've got school, we've got other scheduling obligations. And so we can't just always say, oh, we're going to sit down for device-free dinner. So, if this is the case, then think about other device-free times that you might establish with your kids. So maybe you have a device-free hour or a half hour before they go to bed. Or what about a device-free Sunday? Or maybe a device-free hour like every afternoon to allow time for exercise or non-technology gameplay. So really the idea here is to establish even a small chunk of time, either during the day or the week, to have your kids intentionally unplug from their technology. So I also mentioned that it's important that everyone's on the same page when it comes to rules. Now, this is a pretty formal family media agreement that Common Sense has, but it's kind of a great place to start to see some things you might want to address with your own kids. So this is a great tool. And even if you have you can modify this if you want. And when you have kids sign this, it kind of makes, and parents sign it, it kind of makes it like an official document. So if you want to access this, there's a website down here at the bottom. It's bit.ly/, and it's case sensitive. So it's capital EVSD, capital F for FAM, and capital C for contract. Now we're also going to put this on our East Valley website under the families tab. And it's also on the Common Sense website under for parents. And so when we get to that portion of it, I can kind of show you where that is as well. All right, so we've established our rules. Now it's time to tackle this issue of kids multitasking during work time. So multitasking is a fantastic skill, and we want our kids to be able to do this, however, not at the expense of their education. So we're talking about things like having Minecraft open in another window on the computer while they're in English, or they're messaging friends on their phone during algebra, or even trying to take care of a younger sibling when trying to do homework. So just today, I walked into my son's room because he needed help on a math problem. And he had his work up on his screen, and he had his paper there to do his problem on. But then he also had his phone on because I heard this little voice coming out of the phone, and he was FaceTiming with his friend who was talking about the Seattle Sounders win last night, which is great. Go Sounders. But I had to remind him that it was homework time and that he needed to focus on his homework and hang up the phone. So again, multitasking is a great skill, but not when it's impacting the student learning. So Common Sense has a couple suggestions that might help you help your kids to stop multitasking. One is creating a learning friendly space. So this is one that doesn't include distracting devices like phones or gaming devices. And that's not always easy to do in our homes, or if we're going to another person's house to learn, or whatever we're doing. It's not always easy just to create this space, but the idea is to try to eliminate some of those distractions. The second one is establishing a study schedule. This is a great way to help kids develop self-discipline and independence. They can follow their own schedule and stick to it. Setting rules for online assignments. Remind kids that when they're doing their online work, to only keep those essential windows open. You know, kids are really good at doing, I've got a couple of game behind my algebra work, and, you know, all these different things. Again, we love multitasking, but we want them focused on what the learning is. And to help them develop focus, which is what I just talked about, and then allow time for digital activities, but remind them that when they're doing digital activities, really try to just be on one screen at a time. And then again, it comes back to setting an example by not multitasking yourself. So we're talking texting while driving, texting while talking is what I call it too, is when, you know, you're talking to somebody, but you're also texting somebody else at the same time. So just kind of being cognizant of some of those messages that we're sending to our kids and being that example for them. And then we move into motivation. And one of the most common issues that we frequently hear from teachers and families and caregivers is, how can I keep my kid motivated while learning online? It's a very different world, and it's challenging for all of us. So here's a few ideas. One is to check in regularly. You know, don't make assumptions about how things are going. Kids can be motivated by different things today than they were 3 weeks ago. You know, your type A kid may no longer want to work for gold stars, and your daydreamer may all of a sudden speed through work just to get it over with. So you don't want to make assumptions on what's going to work. Instead, ask your kid the questions, you know, see how they're holding up. How are they feeling? Determine what it is they're trying to accomplish and figure out what you can do to support them. The other thing is helping them build their work ethic. I think that we can all agree that we want this uncertainty to be over with, but remember that learning is a lifelong goal. We're all learning all the time. It doesn't end when school ends. So when discussing schoolwork with your kids, you want to focus on the skills they're building, the value of seeing things through and finishing them, and then that sense of feeling of accomplishment. Number 3 is praising their effort. You know, your child might get a problem wrong, but they ask the right questions of the teacher. Maybe they breezed through today's reading, but yesterday's was really tough for them. So now more than ever, taking notice of and then commenting positively on how your kid is growing and progressing can really give them that forward momentum that they need. And then establishing structure and routines. Sticking to a schedule really provides that stability that kids need to keep plugging away at their work. Plus, it also kind of minimizes their instincts to get off task. So if they have a schedule they're trying to keep, hopefully it kind of diverts them from going off task. And then, really when expectations are set, it's more likely that kids will meet those expectations. Incentivize. So, kids always like different kinds of rewards, but make sure that when you do offer a reward, that it's earned and that the student knows, the child knows that they've really earned that reward. Another idea is to break up the day. So, this can be a little tricky when there's expectations that the district and the teachers have, and the students for what their day looks like. But if you have a little bit of control over when they do their homework, maybe mix it up a little. Consider letting them have maybe a longer lunch or tackling some assignments after they have 30 minutes of outdoor exercise or playing with their puppy. I love this one, appeal to a favorite teacher or coach. So a word of encouragement, even like a recorded video message or a text or an email or phone call from a favorite teacher or a coach or somebody else that's in the student's life. It can be a family member. It can be a mentor of some sort. Sometimes that's just what the kids need. And it doesn't have to be like a current teacher or current coach. It can be somebody from the past, just someone that your child wouldn't want to let down. And so that's a really important thing to do. And then, be flexible and adjust expectations, because if we've learned anything during this crisis, it's to expect the unexpected. And our kids need time to adjust to new and changing learning environments. And so what I would say is just remember to empathize, celebrate those small victories, and then every day get up and start with fresh eyes. It's a new day. So one thing throughout this series that we're going to keep coming back to is this idea of choose, check, and chat. So, we've talked about some of these strategies to manage some screen time and balance some media use. And we've also provided ideas to help stop some multitasking and motivating kids in this hybrid and distance learning environment. But of course, the best tool that we have as parents and as caregivers is that communication. So when we're supporting our kids in this environment, it's important to remember, I think, these 3 C's. So choose is, with little kids, we choose the time and the space and the place for their learning. But tweens and teens should be able to start making these choices themselves, because the goal is to help them make good choices on their own. Check. This is about not spying on your kids. It's not trying to get in there and catch them doing something, but it's about really checking in on them. How are they? It's engaging with them and engaging with their learning and helping them figure out how to manage their work in this environment. And then chat is just that follow-up. It's following up on that conversation you had, engaging your child in discussion, and just really to kind of help you guys stay connected. It's really important to do that. So it's interesting because when we talk about using digital devices, and kids are always on their screens all the time. And if we think about it and we really think back to when we were kids and think about what was most important to you when you were that age. Was it connecting and hanging out with friends and family, or was it about fitting in with your peers, or having some kind of an outlet for self-expression? It might be all of these things or one of these things at one time or another. So when you just really kind of think about what's important to kids at different ages, probably very similar to the same things that were important to us when we were that age as well. So the point is that, kids today aren't that different. They really want the same things that we did, the chance to be more independent and the opportunity to try out different identities and to accept and get acceptance from their peers. The only thing that's different is that the devices have made it look a little bit different. And so, kids still rely on parents and caregivers and all those adults in their lives for support and guidance, but they want to try out their independence, just like most of us did. Children start to develop their own relationship with technology at a young age. And as they get older and their usage of digital media increases, it starts to look really different. And a lot of times our kids' media use is not as closely aligned with our usage and what we're using technology for. And as they grow, this gap is going to get a little bit wider. So we really want to make sure that we give them opportunities to make mistakes and to correct those mistakes and to learn and grow and to make those good decisions. So I love this quote. Carrie and I have talked about this a couple times because it's like adults just don't get it. They think I'm addicted, but I'm not. And when you look at this part, it says I'm addicted to my friends. So this quote is from a teen focus group that Common Sense had. And if we just stop and think about that for a minute, of course it makes sense. Most people crave human connection, and in our current state of affairs, it's difficult to do. So we need to keep this in mind when we're supporting our kids. And I totally understand why my son wanted to FaceTime with his friend, but my job was to remind him that it was homework time and he could connect when he was finished. So it's kind of like hooking up in real life. You can't go to your friend's house until your homework is done. So it's that same idea. It just looks a little different right now. There's a researcher and author, Dana Boyd, and she says that technology has become the primary place where young people can hang out with their peers. Kids want to be on these sites because that's where their friends are. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole idea behind it. So when we move into our next session, we'll be talking more about social media and gaming and stuff. And so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this, this idea about hanging out and socializing using technology. So be the training wheels. Kids will never learn to ride if we don't let them. So we can be their training wheels as they get started. When kids learn how to ride a bike, we usually take them somewhere safe. There's grass, there's not a lot of hills, and we hold the back of their seat, maybe their handlebars, their back, and we let them find their balance. So we really have to do the same thing with devices and technology and media, social media, apps, all of this stuff, because ultimately we want them to be able to find that balance and safety themselves when we're not hovering over them and not there to help them. So we really want to give them those opportunities. So Common Sense is a great website. It provides you with a lot of resources. They have reviews and lists of movies and TV shows and YouTube channels, books, apps, games, websites. There's guides and important things to know about a lot of the online games and social media apps. So it kind of gives parents and caregivers that insight into what those apps are really about. They have online safety and digital citizenship resources. And they also have like weekly podcasts and webinars and other supports. And so their website is commonsensemedia.org. I highly recommend that you go there. It's just a fantastic resource. And so I'm just going to tell you guys that you have got this. I often hear people say today that, we're all in the same boat, but, I actually have a different take on this, because I think it's more accurate to say that we're all weathering the same storm, but our boats are all unique. So some of us have 5 kids of different grade levels in our boat, while others may only have 1 or 2 kids in their boat. Some boats contain 2 parents, some 1, some don't have any. Some boats are manned by grandparents or other caregivers with kids from different families, and some boats don't have reliable Wi-Fi. So we're all in the same storm, but our boats look a little different. So the point is that you've got this. In the end, it comes down to those basic communication and teaching your morals and your values to your kids. There's no one right answer. And just remember that you're the one that knows your kid the best. And so to wrap up today, I just want to thank you for being here and hope that you will join us for our second session that's coming up in our Connected Caregiver series. It's called Social Media, Gaming, and Mental Health. And it will be on January 21st at 5:30. The session's going to be delivered in the same format as today's and can be accessed through that same link. So that is the end of our presentation today, but Carrie and I will remain in the session for about another 15 minutes or so to answer any questions there might have been that came up in the Q&A, and we'll try to address them and or any additional ones that you have. And then we're going to put together a Q&A that we can post on our website under our Families tab to answer some of those questions for everybody. So you're welcome to stay on with us. Thank you for being here tonight.